Luxury is almost synonymous now with privacy and exclusivity. Mark Zuckerberg bought a $170 million mansion on Indian Creek. You build trust in a foxhole, you build trust when it's raining, you build trust when things aren't necessarily going according to plan. That buyer, when they come down to Miami, is looking to isolate themselves, be private, and ultimately curate and cultivate the people that are around them. Information, in my opinion, is the single most valuable commodity and currency.
Don Peebles III, you are the third Don Peebles in the family lineage.
That's exactly right.
So, Don, you grew up in real estate around the family business. Your father started in Washington, D.C. Tell us, what was it like growing up? Were you going to sites? Were you going to projects? What was it like around the dinner table?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that. Whether it was nature or nurture, I don't know, but I've always wanted to be a real estate developer.
Wow.
And so my real estate education and my real education happened simultaneously. When I was at the dinner table, when I learned addition and subtraction and how to carry numbers, I did that on a P&L. When you learn long division and something I've subsequently forgotten, I did that when I learned what a cap rate was and how to find building value with net operating income. And so real estate's always been a part of my life and a part of how our family worked together and bonded. And it's been an incredible opportunity. But yeah, when I was 9, I think I introduced my father at the groundbreaking for the Bath Club. I've been in and out of the office, whether it's his or at DLJ, ever since I can remember. I couldn't imagine doing anything else, though there was a brief period of time when I was 10 or 11 where I thought I might be an NBA player, but I was quickly disabused of that notion.
Real estate development is longer career, opportunity to do something
better on your knees too.
Much better on your knees. Let's talk about the Bath Club. Great project, incredible beachfront. You live there.
I live close by.
Okay.
Living there would be a little too close to home.
Okay.
But I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
We're actually, funny enough, on our 100th year.
Wow.
So the Bath Club was founded in 1926.
Okay.
We're doing our centennial celebration around Christmas time this year. And it's an incredible asset. It's been extraordinarily high touch for our family because it's become ubiquitous or synonymous with our family name. And
how did you guys get involved in the deal? And when did you start looking at it, and what was the vision?
Oh, my goodness. So this is going to make me seem young and my father seem old. So as you mentioned, my dad started the business in the early 1980s in Washington, D.C. And we very quickly built a number of office buildings and mid-sized projects in Washington. He bought a vacation home down in Miami. And then ultimately in 97, we moved down here. And we lived in Coconut Grove. There's no beach access.
Yep.
And when you come from some place that has a winter, the only place you want to go when it's 75 and sunny in February is the beach. And so we applied to a number of different beach clubs. And the one that was, I think, the most sophisticated, the most historic, the most family-friendly was the Bath Club. And we got accepted and we joined. And then a few days later, my father gets a phone call from the Miami Herald. And they say, how does it feel to integrate the Bath Club? And he goes, my dad's from D.C.
Right.
D.C.'s had black political, social, and economic power for an extraordinarily long time. And so it didn't dawn on him. So he said, what does that mean? And they said, well, you're the first black member of the Bath Club. And for a long time, the Bath Club had a rule. No blacks, no Jews, no dogs.
Wow.
And he said, wow, that's incredible. And we joined and we went, and I've got some really fond memories there. A couple years later, they ran into some financial issues, and my father made a loan to the club with an offer to buy some of the excess tennis courts, and then ultimately develop a condominium building there. We did that and delivered the building in 2007. Did an incredible job. I think some of the finish quality even today stacks up with some of the new construction product at 57 Ocean and the Paragon when they're all finished. And we retained the club and reopened it as a members club in 2019.
It's a great club. You guys have a Japanese restaurant in there?
So we do. So we have a omakase. It's 12 seats. The chef, a super cool guy, His name's Wei. He's Japanese. He's got full sleeves of tattoos. He's got an $80,000 watch on. He's one of the most charismatic people I've ever spent time with, and the food is to die for. We're keeping our fingers crossed about a Michelin star. I know we've got to be open a year, but I think we might get one, maybe two.
That would be incredible. Michelin
It'd be a
star
big win.
restaurant in your private club that is also open to the members.
That's exactly right. And so the only place that a non-member can come is the omakase. And it's hidden in like a backroom speakeasy. Actually, a lot of the art is from our own family collection. And it's an incredible time. The sake list is top tier.
Let's talk about Peebles Corporation. You guys are national developers. So you're not just building in Miami, as we were talking about before the podcast. You're in Las Vegas, you're in New York, you're in DC, and these other markets. What markets are outside of Miami are you excited about today?
I'm extraordinarily excited about Boston, Atlanta, Nashville, and to some degree, Provo, Utah, and Las Vegas, but all for different reasons. We take a barbell approach. We think there's a smaller and smaller share of individuals who are aggregating a larger and larger share of global GDP. And as a consequence, their marginal propensity to spend on luxury items that they want is incredibly high. And I think you see that. I'm sure this is taped, but a day or two ago, Mark Zuckerberg bought a $170 million mansion on Indian Creek. Those sort of 9-figure sales didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. On the other end of the barbell, there's a greater and greater number of people who no longer make income sufficient to justify the cost and risk associated with new construction. And affordable housing will become, I think, the most meaningful portion of our public policy debate, if it's not already. And so we like to focus on those two ends of the barbell. In Boston, we need both. There's a number of high-income earners that are looking for luxury condominium executions. We have a beautiful site in the Back Bay. And there are a number of Bostonians that, despite having great jobs with benefits, are struggling to find housing close to employment centers. We have a great site in the Chinatown Leather District that we hope, in partnership with the Department of Transportation, can help resolve some of those things.
You guys talk about and you implement affirmative development. Let's talk about that. And how do you guys think about managing your portfolio and spending time on affirmative development and also on the high end?
Yeah, another great question. I think that affirmative development can mean a lot of different things, but ultimately what it means is that you're making decisions through a lens of compassion, and that you're asking yourself not just what's good for me and my investors, but what's good for the community, what's good for the city, where do everyone's long-term interests converge? And then how can we orient a project that's successful, call it across the stakeholder ecosystem? And for us, that's very important, right? We want to be proud of what we do, and money isn't the only determinant to success or failure. And these projects, make no mistake, won't succeed unless the community also supports the endeavor.
Peebles Corporation investing in the community. That's going to be a great clip. The one.
I'll try.
That one's good. You made an interesting statement that I agree with. The wealthy are getting wealthier. And so focusing on that top end of the market, as a real estate developer, they have more share of GDP. As you mentioned, Mark Zuckerberg just bought a $170 million house. The Google co-founders just bought houses here. And we're seeing more and more people. Starbucks co-founder and CEO Howard Schultz just bought a penthouse at the Four Seasons in Surfside. On the high end and luxury side, what are you guys excited about today?
Luxury is almost synonymous now with privacy and exclusivity. We recognize that these sort of buyers are looking to be surrounded by like-kind people. They're looking to be safe, private, and heavily amenitized. We're familiar with them because that's our constituency at the Bath Club. We know intimately what their needs are and what their pain points are. And we've got a number of projects in Miami and Miami Beach in extraordinarily high barrier to entry markets where there's an opportunity to deliver that outcome. And that means larger units, higher check sizes, and more boutique building executions. I think one of the challenges with the Miami luxury market is that your $50 million penthouse buyer sometimes has to ride in the elevator with the guy who's renting a $1.2 million one bedroom on the 10th floor. And though I think, a dynamic society requires people from different socioeconomic strata to interact with one another, that buyer, when they come down to Miami, is looking to isolate themselves, be private, and ultimately curate and cultivate the people that are around them. We want to make sure that we deliver that execution.
The wealthy are looking for privacy. That is an amenity.
Without a doubt. Privacy and security.
Let's talk about how you guys source your deals. And you guys have been looking at a lot of deals over the years, of course, 40 years. I'm sure deals come to you. The deals in Miami Beach that you're looking at and working on or other markets, were those through brokers? Were those off market?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll say that at least it's been my experience. The prettiest girl at the bar has never walked up to me and introduced herself. And they're certainly not putting flyers up on the wall asking you to go take a look. And as a consequence, right, marketed deals, in my opinion, aren't a fertile ground to find opportunity. I think you get into a competition where you either need to be the most creative or you need to be willing to make the least amount of money, or you need to have the worst assumptions, right? And I think there's only one of those three outcomes that makes sense, and the other two I'd prefer to avoid. And so we don't buy anything marketed. If it's got JLL in the bottom right-hand corner, it's an immediate pass from our standpoint because there are other groups with lower costs of capital that are going to go ahead and outcompete us. I want to approach sellers. I want to identify sites that are aligned with my market thesis in environments that have been previously overlooked. And I want to build personal relationships with people who I can help unlock value. Full stop.
Hey guys, my firm Prosper Group is a Miami-based real estate development firm focused on ultra luxury waterfront and prime properties here in South Florida. We source off-market real estate and we handle everything from acquisition, design, through construction and sales. If you are an accredited investor and you want to learn more about how we work and how to invest with us, go to prospergroup.com/invest and book a discovery call. You're doing the hard work. You're identifying sites that you want off-market deals. So you guys have 4 decades of experience development across the country. Let's talk about capital and having those long-term relationships. Before we hopped on the pod, we were talking about transparency and building trust. What are some recommendations that you have to those listening, other developers, people in the industry, about how to build trust and how to build long-term relationship in this industry?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. And I think it's a question actually that speaks more to character than it does to business acumen. You build trust in a foxhole. You build trust when it's raining. You build trust when things aren't necessarily going according to plan. I think everybody can behave ethically and everybody can act in our own collective best interest when it's aligned and when it's sunny outside.
Right.
When things are easy, you never really know who you're dealing with. When things are difficult, you become intimately familiar with who your counterparty is. I'd say that our business is a business of problems. And if we didn't have any problems, we wouldn't have any business. But things, particularly in real estate development, invariably go wrong. And I think being transparent, being forthright, being collaborative when things go wrong is the pathway to building trust and then ultimately to building to repeat business. I think you can have a deal that isn't economically successful, but inures to the long-term benefit of a relationship if you're able to navigate the difficulty, in a way that engenders trust, transparency, and compassion. And so we always endeavor to do that.
You build relationships and you really get to know people when times get tough.
That's right.
And you see who their character is.
Yeah.
And it's really important to be collaborative, to be transparent. We have a rule to share bad news. Share bad news so that we can attack it together. There's no avoiding it. We're in the development business. You're in the development business. There's challenges in all businesses and things are going to go wrong. And people appreciate when you bring that news to them and they know that nothing is perfect. And you build that trust in that relationship for the long term.
100%. I think that sharing news is almost more important than sharing money. And I'll expand on that a bit. Information, in my opinion, is the single most valuable commodity in currency. It's more valuable than money. It's more valuable than really like any physical infrastructure you can have, because it's the information that allows you to make the necessary business decision in order to protect your position. And so when you don't share information, to me, it's worse than not providing a distribution, right? Because what you're doing is you're preventing your counterparty, whom you owe, right, the ability to make the decision that's in their best interest.
Gatekeeping information. We
That's
call it gatekeeping information. And it's something that you learn to be transparent over time. Sharing information isn't going to hurt you, even if it's bad news, because it's there. So you have to evaluate it. You have to address it.
Yeah, but it's that same skill set that helps you be successful and build meaningful relationships in business that ultimately helps you be successful and build meaningful relationships in your life as a whole. Whether it's your romantic partner, your wife, your girlfriend, your fiance, talking about the things that are difficult for you to navigate, right, that matters. Whether it's your friendships, whether it's your colleagues, navigating those interpersonal differences, if it's done the right way, those challenges don't pull you further apart, they bring you closer together.
Let's talk about your projects that you're actively working on today. Which projects are you most excited about? You talked about that you build larger master plan communities. So these projects, they take years to put together. You're working with the local municipalities, you're working with the community, you're working with capital partners, and you're working with a lot of other different service providers. So it does take time putting the development puzzle together. What are you guys most excited about right now?
So the projects that I'm most excited about, and I hate to be coy, are projects I can't always talk about.
Okay.
We've got a couple projects in Miami Beach that are incredibly high barrier to entry, that have a level of sophistication and quality and location that I think is irreplaceable and largely hasn't been delivered in South Florida, period. I think there are certain buildings in New York, certain buildings in London, certain buildings in Tokyo and Singapore that reflect this level of quality. But I don't think we've necessarily seen it in Miami and Miami Beach, and it's going to require, I think, a lot of conviction and a big swing on our part and our partner's part to do a good job. But that's what's making my heart beat a little faster. I think the project that I'm most proud of today actually operates on the other side of that barbell. We're partnered with the Nashville Housing Authority to redevelop a public housing complex that's 50 acres. It's a neighborhood. It's called Napier Sudicum, and I've driven through it a number of times. And, our country does a lot of things extraordinarily well, but providing housing for the neediest among us is something that we can constantly improve. And I'm feeling exceptionally excited about the opportunity to deliver over the next couple decades nearly 5,000 new units of affordable housing that's attainable to folks who are making 30, 40, 50% of area median income in a way that's dignified, that's modern, that's at the cutting edge, and that can hopefully make affordable housing not a permanent situation, right, but a temporary bump in the road, and allow a number of our residents to graduate to home ownership and then ultimately to provide the foundation for themselves or their children to do what we do and jump into entrepreneurship and create outsized value for themselves, for their families, the community, and make America what it should be.
That's incredible. Absolutely. Focusing on the neediest, those who aren't so lucky to be in the top 1%. And by definition, there's a lot of them out there. So that's great that the Peebles Corporation is focused on that.
Yeah, it's a part of our corporate ethos, right? At some point, when it's all said and done, whether you're at the pearly gates or whether they're talking about you at your funeral, they're not holding up your personal financial statement, right? They're not saying, hey, this is the guy that made all the money. Right. In an ideal world, right, or certainly what I aspire to, what my father aspires to, is that we've changed people's lives, that we've improved the station of the world, right, where we've had the privilege of touching it. And you can't always win, right, but you can always act in the best interest of the most people. And our goal is to deliver the world and our communities and our projects just a little bit better than we found them. And if we can do that, regardless of what the balance sheet says at the end of the day, we know we did the right thing.
Those are wise words. And it sounds like your father has built a really incredible ethos within Peebles Corporation.
No doubt.
How was it growing up? And you said your dream as a kid was to be a real estate developer. I have a 1-year-old son. I hope that he aspires to be in the business. How did your dad manage the relationship, and how did you guys manage the relationship successfully for you to come into the business, and how has the role evolved over the years?
I think that my father did something that is incredibly difficult for very, very successful men to do. And that's he'd always treated me with a meaningful amount of respect, even when my age or level of experience didn't justify the amount of credence that he would lend my opinion. And so that does two things, right? One, that makes me feel as though my input, even as a very young person, is extraordinarily valuable. And because it's valuable, it adds greater importance to what it is that I'm saying and why I'm saying it. And so it creates this incentive system where I need to know what the heck I'm talking about. And so I've always been a bit of an information junkie. I always want to keep learning and keep improving and get better marginally day after day. And that level of respect and the willingness to critically engage with me and my opinions, added fuel to that fire. But my dad and I have been best friends. I mean, but for a couple of years when I was 15, 16, 17, where I like to rebel a little bit, and he never lets me forget it. We've had one of those relationships that feels almost storybook. And it's been a pleasure. It's been great working with him. We're incredibly collaborative. And, not a lot of people can say this about their boss or their mentor, but he very much wants me to be more successful than he is. He wants me to succeed individually more than he wants himself to succeed. And he makes that very, very clear. And so with that, there comes a meaningful amount of responsibility on my end to ensure that I'm living up to those expectations and that I'm putting myself in a position to capitalize on the incredible opportunity that I've been given.
That's a great character trait of your father. It sounds like not only is he loving, he wants you to be successful. Someone who wants their child, their son, to be more successful for them is someone who is low ego. And of course, he's built an incredible corporation.
Don't let him hear that he's low ego. All
Portfolio.
Right? Don't listen.
Don, if you're listening. Okay, so maybe not low ego all the time, but there's also some other people who have family real estate businesses whose egos are.
Well, I think that it's not low ego. I think it's high security.
Yeah.
I think that and I hate to psychoanalyze my father on camera, but we'll do it.
Okay.
I think that he feels incredibly good about what he's accomplished and what he's done and where his place is in the world, that it doesn't tear him down to see someone else be successful. But frankly, I've got the same name as him.
Yeah.
Right. I think that, for lack of a better word, and hopefully he'll disagree with this to some degree, but he thinks of me as another one of the projects that he can point to and say, look what I built.
That's a great way to frame it. What else did you learn from your father, and what do you think made him successful in his early days in becoming a real estate developer? And Peebles Corporation is the largest Black-owned real estate company in America.
That's right. What he does exceptionally well, and what I aspire to do better every day, this is actually one of his strong points, turns out to be one of my weak points, is that he is incredibly good at building relationships and maintaining them over time. I think that when you live as a young millennial and you have so many, call it, iPhone-sized impositions on your time, Instagram, all your texts, your DMs, your emails, your phone calls, you can maintain a lot of surface level relationships with people.
Yep.
And maybe more than the previous generations could. But you, without, I think, diligent effort, don't invest deeply in the people around you. What my father does an exceptionally good job of is building really deep, I think, authentic interpersonal connections with the people that he does business with. And that lubricates or facilitates transactions. When you know somebody and you trust somebody, partnering with somebody becomes exceptionally easy, because all of the challenges that stand in the way of that relationship when it's two groups who don't know each other intimately fall away.
Right.
And when trust is high, right, those barriers to entry become low.
So yes, in the younger generation, we're more connected with technology than ever through DMs, through WhatsApp, through Facebook, and all these different devices. But we're actually less connected as humans in those interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think that there's a double-edged sword to technology, and that it allows us, I think, to have that surface level connection. You can feel as though you're keeping up with somebody on their Instagram story, and you've never had a conversation in years, but you both have like a rough understanding of what one another are doing. And that doesn't breed, I think, the sense of familiarity and interpersonal intimacy and kind of like closeness that we all crave as people in the world. And that if we took more time to invest in people more deeply, I think that as a society, we'd be better off. And a number of the mental health challenges that you see young people, particularly Gen Z, face would fall by the wayside.
Did you always work in the family business? You went to Columbia for university. Did you go straight in? Some fathers, some parents, they like their son to go intern somewhere externally. Were you always at Peebles Corp?
So I interned at DLJ Credit Suisse.
Okay.
So I was there. I worked for a Congressperson Barbara Lee, in California. Incredibly left-leaning. I'm a little bit more centrist than she is. But both of those were incredible experiences. But I had been in Peebles Corp offices routinely, starting in middle school. He had me in 12 and 13 in the office learning Excel and applying some of the math he had me do by hand on the computer. When I was a young, rambunctious high school student in the summers, I worked with Glenn Rossi, a general contractor in Long Island. I did demo work. I roofed houses, and I helped out with some of the other low skill stuff. So I was a laborer on a job site for a couple summers, and all of those things, like including I think the more resume building internships, put me in a position where I was able to add value exceptionally early on, and take on a meaningful amount of autonomy that, in an ideal world, multiplied my confidence and my capabilities.
These are lessons that I want to teach my son. Growing up in a successful household, you can be given a lot, and sometimes that can handicap your children. You want to give them everything, things that you didn't maybe grow up with, and they have less time to develop and be productive. So your father had you working from an early age so that you could be productive and you could figure things out on your own.
That's right. I think the biggest piece there was sports.
Okay.
And, unfortunately, I didn't make it to the NBA or NFL or MLB, in case anyone was wondering. But it's the lessons you learn playing team sports that help prepare you to navigate the world in a collaborative and effective way. No matter how much money your dad has, you've got to go out, call it between the lines, and perform, right? It's not going to help you, when you're covering, a wide receiver in the slot, right? It's not going to help you when, you're bringing the ball down the floor, with a couple minutes left of a tight game, and you've got to make sure that you get us into our offensive sets, right? It's not going to help you in scenarios where other people are relying upon you and your moment-to-moment decision-making is tested under pressure and repetitively. Right, and the lessons you learn playing team sports, how to respond to adversity, right? How to compete with somebody, not against somebody, right? How to respond to failure when other people were relying on you and you let them down, right? And how to hold somebody accountable but build them back up when they fall short of their collective expectations, right? Those sorts of things make you a good leader. They make you a good business person, and ultimately, I think they make you a good person. And you can give somebody a lot of material things, but what you can't give them is self-esteem. You can't give them respect, and you can't give them competence, no matter how much money you throw at it. And I think you can build all of those things in a team sport environment at a very early age. And unlikely right, that, your son will go to the NBA.
Very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
0% chance.
Yeah, we'll give him one, 1 in 1,000 maybe, but
Maybe golf.
maybe golf.
So my wife is German, she's French, Spanish, and 18% African American, and I'm Asian. So I told her we're making a Tiger Woods baby. So
Yes.
we're gonna get him into golf.
So I think that's incredible. I'm terrible at golf. I'm playing on Saturday, and it'll take me 5 hours to play 18 holes. So don't invite me to play. I don't even like it, but I'll get bullied into going from time to time. What I'll say is that the skill set he'll learn playing golf, whether he ends up on the tour or not, going to make him more money, more friends, and ultimately, create a richer life than, in my opinion, than anything else.
Real estate is a team sport. You learn determination, you learn teamwork growing up. And the theme of this podcast is the long game. And success is not a straight line as we know it. And in real estate development and these projects, it's not all winning, it's not all good news. What are some challenges that Peebles Corp has faced over the decades that helped make you guys stronger going forward?
Yeah, I think that in this business, you face challenges every day, if not every hour, right? And
always putting out fires.
Yeah, always putting out fires. Being calm under pressure. I think that maybe there are 3 or 4 characteristics that matter most. It's resilience, your ability to respond when bad things happen, right? And despite setbacks, continue to persist, right? It's your adaptability. It's your ability to learn from those setbacks and change your behavior in order to increase the likelihood that you'll be successful in this next endeavor, right? And then I think that there's a twofold one. It's integrity and empathy, right? Your ability to respond and act honorably with your partners, with your teammates, with your competitors, and your ability to understand where it is that they're coming from so that you can meet in the middle and create compromise and resolution. And if you can do those 4 things, no matter what it is that you spend your time doing, you'll be able to be successful. I think real estate development is in itself a long game. These buildings last for a long time, but they take an extraordinarily long time to come to fruition. And what a lot of lay people don't understand is that there are months and years before they ever see a shovel in the ground when the most risk is taken, right? And when the biggest challenges are overcome. And in our business, being able to think both short and long, right, differentiates the people who are around for a couple years versus the ones who are around for a couple generations.
Yeah, that's incredible advice. For those of you guys listening, Don Peebles III, 4 decades plus of successful real estate development, largest Black-owned real estate company in America. He's carrying the torch.
Doing the best that I can. I've got big shoes to fill, and I only see so far because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. But I think that, it's our generation takes, a greater and greater share of the responsibility to push our cities forward. It's important that we learn from the past and we have a clear eye to the future. The world is changing. The needs of communities are changing. And if we can continue to be resilient and adaptable and act with integrity, right, and compassion, I think the world is going to be a better place tomorrow than it is today.
Absolutely. What advice do you have for our young listeners out there who are looking to get into real estate development?
I think that you have to take the initiative.
Yeah.
I think that you have to get yourself into the mix by any means necessary. You have to build relationships, and you have to be an information junkie. The thing that people prioritize now more than anything else is competence. And that used to mean your ability to manage a slideshow and navigate an Excel model and understand the trappings of the blocking and tackling in real estate development. I think for the first time, that world is changing. Artificial intelligence tools actually subordinate those skills relative to interpersonal skills. And so if you're able to navigate the world well and navigate environments with confidence and poise, be rhetorically gifted to some degree, I think you can separate yourself from the other competitive young people. Now, that's not to say that you don't need to know how the deals work, because you do. And the best way to learn is always to build the model yourself. But that skill set isn't what guys like you are looking for. you're looking for somebody who can immediately add value, bring relationships to the table, and operate independently with judgment and discernment.
Excellent advice. And Don, where can people find you and connect with you online?
I've got an Instagram that at Don_Peebles. I think that's a great place. I wish I posted there more, and I'll do my best to do that going forward. And then via email. Email's on the website. Shoot me a note, and I'd love to connect.
Amazing. Great to have you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.